What up, young slumlords and ladies? This is Jake Lapp, and welcome to the Young Slumlords podcast, where me and Caleb Henshaw talk our shiz and hopefully help spark the idea for finding your financial independence in this paycheck-to-paycheck world. All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back. This week, we actually have our first repeat guest. Go back to episode 9 if you haven't already. Listen to that. We've got our boy Seth here, and we're not gonna necessarily go into his story as much, his original, like where he's at and everything on this episode, because it's already on episode 9. So if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. Come back, listen to this. Now, the reason that we brought Seth back, besides for him just being a great guy and wanting to hang out and talk to him more, Seth actually has a event coming up, like a networking meetup, speaker, whole deal coming up August 12th. And I'm super excited about it. Me and Caleb are going to be there. We've got some other friends that are going to be there. I just think it's going to be a great event. Seth agrees that it's going to be a great event.
Oh, yeah.
And he knows that our listeners are the guys that he wants to show up. And as of right now, the tickets are $60, but if you use the promo code Slumlord, you'll get $10 off. $50, and I'm gonna have Seth kind of go into more detail about the whole shebang and what he's got planned. But this $50, if you're just starting out, anything like that, like this is such a great opportunity to meet with us three and a lot of other local investors in the area, like to get your foot in the door, start having these conversations. The amount that this $50 might pay off in the future, if you network correctly and use this time right, it'll pay for itself a lot of times.
Yep, that's the goal.
So yeah, Seth, welcome back. And what's going on August 12th?
Yeah, so Matt Faircloth is going to be our keynote speaker, and he's a big fan of superheroes like me, and so we have him come in, and he's just kind of going to give his superhero story, kind of like his origin story of who he is, kind of what made him what he is today. It's an opportunity really to just network with other people in our area, but also kind of hear how you can invest in real estate without any money. That's really what his book is all about, and that's kind of like his special power. He's able to raise private capital. He's able to do syndications with other people and buy apartment buildings and math. Like I think he bought, this is a couple months ago, he bought like a 300 unit down in North Carolina through raising money and doing a syndication and all that. So yeah, it's a great opportunity just to rub shoulders with people in our area, just to meet people that are like-minded. And yeah, like Jake said, it's one of those things where spend $50 to potentially be able to work with someone there, and they'll fund a deal worth $50,000. So it's kind of like to have that, what is that, 1,000-fold? It's kind of like, that's why you buy a book. It teaches you, we talked about last time, buying a book, never split the difference, and then saving, $25,000.
Right. And I think that it's a weird in between, because we're big on like being against the gurus and the people that are going to sell you this course. Like, oh, invest $20,000 with me and I'll make you a millionaire. Like, buy my course and do this and I'll make you money. And it's like, it's so far from that. It's $50, and that's just to cover. Like, you're not looking at this as an opportunity to make money.
Yeah.
You're looking at it to cover your costs, to cover his costs. Like, so besides for just liking superheroes, Matt's a pretty big time investor. And what's his book called?
Raising Private Capital.
Yeah. So like I've heard nothing but good things about the book. I personally haven't read it yet, but that's definitely on the list. What are some more like details about the night? Like, so it's August 12th, when to when, where's it at, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's at our wedding venue called Historic Stonebrick Farm. The address is 475 Deep Run Road, Percy, PA 18944. We'll link the Eventbrite page in the podcast description.
Yeah, we'll have it on Instagram and everything. We'll have it all over the place.
Yep. And you can also find it on Bigger Pockets meetup page. I'll put the link there as well. So it's from 5 to 9. There'll be a food truck. I got Old School Burgers. It's a company outside of Chalfont. And so you can come anywhere between 5 to 6. It's kind of like the soft, time to come. And then Matt will do his thing, and he'll be able to kind of give his story. And then at the end, we're actually going to do like a quick little like ask me anything mastermind. And one of the things that's really cool that I wanted to mention about Matt is he's a fellow Bucks County resident. So he's actually, he lives down in New Hope.
Cool.
Nice.
So a bunch of local guys and girls that are all investing in real estate. You know what I mean? Like, or planning to. Like, if you're not at that level, you didn't buy your first property, like, this is for you. Like, his book is about raising money. We were talking about this before the podcast, but it's funny because, the reason a lot of people don't get started is the lack of funds. Mm-hmm. And that's the issue that he's going to be addressing.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it like that until we started talking, but it's like, my mindset has always been like, oh, if I don't have the money, I'm going to work harder and save harder and be cheaper and, get there. But there's other ways around it. Like, if you've listened to Seth's podcast, episode 9, like, he's done a lot with a little. Mm-hmm. By using other people's money and leveraging other people's money and building an empire that way, and he's doing great. And so, like, that opportunity and that learning opportunity, whether you have any interest in raising private capital or not, we're going to talk about that. That's great. But, like, seriously, the people there and just getting a phone number, I wanted to, Seth is like the king of networking, and I kind of wanted to ask you, for someone who's brand new, doesn't have a lot of connections, wants to come to this event and make a few, what are some tips you have for them?
Yeah, so, just come into the event, maybe bring a friend, bring a friend or two, just so you have someone there already that I'd say that's tip number 1. Number 2, just come, and everyone has something. This is kind of like what I want to get into as far as like talking about superheroes and this and that. Like, everyone has something they're good at. And, you might be a carpenter, you might work in IT, or you might, cut grass for a living like I do. You have something that makes you. And so if you're worried about coming to the meetup, like, maybe someone at the meetup wants to connect with an IT guy, or maybe they want to connect with a plumber. You have a skill, or your friend has a skill, or you might you might have a connection to someone in our area that you can kind of add value to someone else at the meetup.
Right. Like, I think that's such an important thing that I didn't start doing until maybe a year or so ago, but keeping track of all the people that and what services they offer, what their strengths are, because now you can't help everybody. Mm-hmm. But if you know enough people, someone that can solve someone's problem. And if you're trying to link up with someone, if you're trying to add value to someone that you want to be in their circle, you want to be a part of their thing, find out what's bugging them. Find out the thing that everyone's got something that they're working on or need help with, or maybe they just know someone who's looking for something. Like, that's the beauty of networking and spreading out. So that, like, Seth has been such a key.
Well, you kind of just like opened both of our eyes to see like how important networking is and how easy it is at the same time. Of like, I know somebody who can do something, and I know somebody who needs something. All you do is just like interconnect those two people together, and then you're seen as the man for just sending a phone number to somebody else through text. Mm-hmm. And it's just super easy to do. You just have to be able to know the guy who can do the thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like that simple. And then like being able to walk into a room full of people, just start rubbing elbows. It's a little awkward at first. I've been to some like chamber of commerce, meetups and stuff like that. And like at first you don't know anybody, and you got to kind of like, walk around to a group of people, be like, hey, how you doing? My name's Caleb. What do you do here? And then like do that 40 times, like all night. So that can be a little bit rough at first, but like once you get those connections and you have those people, it's just that much more. You can then, either provide value or they can provide value to you in the future that you never would have had if you didn't go.
Yeah, and that's so true. And the other thing that's really neat is I am a firm believer, like everyone was a newbie, like starting out. Obviously, like everyone didn't know everything. And even Matt, like he used to be an engineer, he didn't used to invest in real estate. And, he was that same guy that was maybe asking, what seemed like dumb questions to him or to an experienced real estate investor. But, everyone started out. So it's like when you come to this event and you feel kind of nervous or whatever, like, these events are made for like, one of the people that are coming is my mentor who I reached out to about 2 years ago on Bigger Pockets. I messaged him and I was like, hey, I see we're in the same area. Let's get together. And we're actually going to like do some partnerships together and stuff, which is really cool. But even him, like, he's always been big on, everyone had to start somewhere. And just being able to kind of feel like, okay, there's no stupid questions. I need to kind of like just start with the basics. And
as long as you have the drive, though, I feel like most people are willing to help. If it's not like pulling teeth to help you, like if you're like interested in that, like you yourself have the go-getter mentality of like, I want this to be my future. Like I want to be able to invest in real estate. I just don't have, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to get the ball rolling. You find some people who do have all this extra money and they can like, put you on something to see if you're like, able to get the job done. And then you can start finding some connections to maybe do some partnerships in the future. So that way you don't need to come up with all the money yourself, which this is just things that can come up. We're just opening the possibilities here. And, we've talked about sweat equity partnerships before and like how they can always, not always be super equal. So like take that, as you will. It's always up to the individuals, who are doing it. But there's just so many possibilities of real estate that just meeting new people can just open doors that you didn't know were there before.
Yeah. And the other thing is, what's really interesting is kind of what you said about me, where, one of my skill sets is being able to kind of make connections and say, okay, well, this person has something and this person needs something and let me connect them. If you're new, you could still be that same person where, Matt's there or some other experienced real estate investors, they're looking to raise capital or they're looking to make connections in the area. And you could be that key component where it's like, hey, Matt, I know this guy, he's really, he just sold a property. He's looking at 1031 or he's doing this or he's doing that. Like just because you haven't done anything doesn't mean that you don't have any value to add.
Right.
No, so it's huge.
I think that's a great point. Like the person who thinks they have nothing to offer, no experience, no, whatever, but you still can know someone and you can still add value to someone else through other people, be that connecting piece. But I think it's funny that we were talking about that and like how no question's a dumb question. And if anyone that's listening is on like the Bigger Pockets forums, like you'll find out that's not always the case. They'll let you know when you've got a dumb question or when you didn't know your thing and you asked something stupid. Like, would you agree with that there you can really get crap on the forums?
I would say on like Facebook group that are Bigger Pocket groups. And that's fine just because
that's like a keyboard warrior thing. It's like, you're limited. You just see just some text, what kind of dumb person would write that text?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing. It's like if you can just go on to Bigger Pockets or you go on even on the Facebook group and you just keyword search, raising private capital or whatever, like there are tons of threads. So I feel like it's 50-50, I would say, because yes, there are some people that are like, they make a stupid comment or they ask a question that's so basic to them. And it's hard because to them, it is a basic question. But if they just took 5 extra minutes and went on to Google, you talked about it earlier, like you didn't know Bigger Pockets and you asked, on Google, like, hey, what do I do here?
Yeah.
And it came up, and that's the coolest thing about it.
Right. So like, I think we were just having a conversation recently about like how the people that we surround ourselves with are not in that mindset, are not going to belittle someone for thinking something, for asking a dumb question, because there really isn't, because we're all relatively new as well. So like it's much easier for us to empathize with someone starting out. And I think something that's been so great with our circle and the people that we talk to regularly is the abundance mindset. And like that, I think, is something that we're going to find at this event. Like I think at this event, you're going to see a lot of guys who are on that same train of thought. And when I say that, it's like me, Caleb, Seth, Cody, like there's some other guys like in the area that are all kind of after the same goal. We're all trying to get cheap properties that rent for good, and like that's the game. Like we're all kind of in the same race, but it's we're all sending each other deals all the time. We're all calling each other, hey, I just looked at have you seen this place yet? Oh yeah, we just walked through it. Or no, I hadn't seen it. When you walked through it, did you see this? And like that kind of stuff, I feel like is a rarity. Like it's a abnormal thing for a bunch of people with the same goals helping each other. But it's like that abundance mindset of, you know, if I help you, you're going to achieve your goals. You're going to get there. You're going to push me to do more. It's like this just constant frenzy, and it's never just a one-way thing.
Well, it's like a group mentality versus like a lone wolf kind of thing. Like right. I know most of the time, you know, I know especially you always want to do everything yourself, especially with like the work you do on the house. So like I can see you know, how it would be very easy for you to just keep doing that with everything. But like opening yourself up to be like, hey, like I can't buy a deal right now because, you know, it's only one a year. Here's something I just saw. You know for a fact it'll be gone by the time you can buy a house. So, you know, might as well, you know, share that stuff around it because it could come back to you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Jake and I talked the other day on the phone, and what I loved is that Jake and I have had the same mindset for a while, and I've been trying to help him. He's trying, you know, he's helped me with different things, but I just really want to stress, it's funny because I actually made a post, I think it was maybe even last year. And the post was on Bigger Pockets, and it was like, you're not my competition. And then I thought about it the other day, and it's like, it is and it isn't. Like, I want to be in competition with Jake because like we talked about this the other day. You just got your seventh unit, and I'm at 6, and it made me so pissed. And it's not, you know, it's one of those things. And I made sure Jake knew, like, it's not that I think I'm better than you. Obviously, like, it's one of those things where it just was like, wow, if Jake can get 7, I can get to 7, or now I'm going to get to 8. And it was funny because I listened to a podcast the one day, and the guy was like, oh yeah, you know, talk about 90-day challenges and this and that. And I was like, I wonder if I can get another door by the meetup on August 12th. I was like, well, how can I do that? And I was like, I obviously need to have it already in my network. I need to buy without money. And it's like, my brain's already going. And I'm reading 10X by Grant Cardone. And it was that exact mindset of like, well, can I do this in 3 weeks? Like, and how can I do that? Instead of like, oh, it's only 3 weeks away. Like, it's impossible. But it was funny because when I talked to Jake, it's definitely a unique situation because like you hit on it. We're all in this area. I would love to buy a Quakertown property. You know, a lot of other people would love, you know, discount properties in this area. But it is really important to remind each other that like, and Jake even said it the one time, he was like, well, just because like you're looking to buy doesn't mean that I'm looking to buy right now, and vice versa. And also, you know, Jake's looking for house hacks. I'm not looking for house hacks. So it's one of those things where each person might be looking for the same thing, but they're not always looking at the same time.
Yeah. And
I also know that if I help Jake or if I help Caleb or help anyone else, like, not that they're indebted to me, but they're going to help me down the road.
Absolutely.
And I think that's huge for us to remind.
And I think that's such a hard concept for a lot of people to kind of wrap their head around, because so we're all kind of in competition, but we're all not. There's enough for everyone to become millionaires. Mm-hmm. Like there is. Yeah. Like, and where we talked about it with Matt last week, like he's got 3 investors all going to see the same house, like, and he's the agent. How is he supposed to be fair? And it's like, well, all 3 investors have 3 different strengths. One investor is buying cash and is hoping to beat the bank. he just wants his money to do something for him and be completely hands off. There's one person that wants to house hack a turnkey property because they don't have any experience fixing stuff, and they're going to need to hire a bunch of contractors and stuff like that. And then there's someone who's house hacking and is going to do all the work themselves because they know how. The value of that property is completely different to all three of those people. And like we're all in different positions. We all have different strengths. We all have different bank accounts and income, and like everyone has a different situation, and not all the deals are different for all of us. So it's like it's weird to think about. But then another thing that's weird to think about is that one-to-one mindset of like, I do something nice for someone, they owe me something nice. And like, if that's your mind, because that's
a crazy person mentality. Like,
it
honestly,
is, but like it's a logical.
I guess it's more of like an immature mindset.
It's an immature mindset, but I know plenty of people that have that mindset where like someone will do a favor and then have this high expectation because they did a favor. And it's like, if that's your basis of doing favors, you'll go nowhere but the ground. Like that's just a recipe for disappointment and disaster. Where like, if you just like, we talked about it I think on episode 9, and it was like just doing something nice for someone, putting the small amount of effort, like Caleb was saying, like if it's really hard to help you, it's, you're not going to get that much help. But if there's these little things that you need in order to succeed, and the people around you are able to help in a way that's not like killing them, you know what I mean? Like Seth asked me to run some comps on a property and like get the ARV and stuff like that. Like I do that stuff every day. Like it's no big deal for me to do something like that. Like Seth sends me a property. He knows I'm looking for a 3 or 4 unit. He's like, oh, I actually know someone who might be selling a 3 or 4 unit. Here's his number. Like neither of those things took more than 10, 15 minutes for either of us. But by doing something like that constantly for everyone around you, the benefit to yourself is just so great.
Yeah, I mean, in the long run, just having a network of people, like I said before, it's a group mentality of like, you're stronger as a group, you'll go farther as a group. If you're working alone and like you're always alone, you're only going to go as far as you can push yourself to go, versus having a group of people who can all feed off each other's like energy and like brain power. Like, when Jake and I walk into a house, we both see different things. Like it's also because I'm a little bit taller than him, but like we just see the house differently. So it's just, we can see other things the other person may have missed, be like, wow, I would have totally missed that and didn't see that there could be some water damage right there or whatever it is. So it's like, having people to do this with is just so much better, because otherwise you just lose motivation and you kind of just like, you can easily get stuck, get burned out, and just, let it all go, versus like having a group of people who, you feel accountable to, because you don't want to let them down, so you want to keep pushing yourself, and in the long run, you'll be much better off.
Yeah. I think when you, like with that group think thing, and then what you were saying about me personally, like I do a lot of the work myself. I got to the point of buying the first triplex, I got from that lone wolf mentality. Because I needed it. Like I needed to not rely on anyone. I was doing it all by myself. I had that motivation to just go. And then it got to a point where, I reach out to Caleb and it's like, let's do this podcast, because we were spending so much time. Now that I had one friend who also did the same thing and bought a duplex, and now the amount of interaction that we had weekly, or that we have weekly, it's probably more now, just multiplied my ability to comprehend things, to talk about things. Like before we started the podcast, that's what was happening. And then it was like, wow, I'm benefiting so much from this. Let's do a podcast so that we can have 100 people have this group think, and it's just been so great. So I think that's just like a testament to what we're talking about.
Yeah. And I definitely commend you guys, because, you are basically giving people in this area like the recipe to house hack. And in one sense, you could almost think that you're creating more competition for yourself in the future. But again, like there's so many, like you have to think, okay, there are plenty of houses for everyone. And, you know, you even look at Matt, he's writing a book with literally the script on how to raise private capital. You know, I commend him because who knows if he like created competition for himself, but in doing that, he knows, okay, I'm just going to have to step up my game. You know, I just think there's always enough houses. And it's funny because the other day I was on Facebook. It was like a Percy community page. Some guy was like, oh, we don't support new row homes being built and this and that. And I literally commented, I was like, this is so limited. I said 50 years ago, do you think that people said the same thing about the house that you're living in right now? And you know, you also like, I had to think about it, like if he is a kid and someone comes and buys this house, like, and they end up like rescuing them out of a fire or whatever, like that's just like, I know it's like in a movie or whatever, but like I believe in that, you know, like,
yeah,
I truly like, whether Jake pays me back for this or what, like vice versa, or this person never returns a favor, like there's no, like for us, there's no record of it. It's, to me, it's like, and I'm not like a universal guy of like, oh, give and, you know, it'll be given to you and this and that. Like, I think it's just like, if you're a good person and you're good to other people, like it'll come back to you tenfold.
For sure.
You know, and when people see,
without the expectation of it being given back,
Yeah.
though, because I think that's a very key part where like a lot of people will miss it.
yeah, and that's very, I'm glad that you stress that, because I think that is important to, that's not the that's the exact opposite of that.
It's also like some things feel heavy to some people, some things feel light, like doing something. Like, you know, some people picking up the phone and calling somebody seems like the end of the world sometimes. Like they just don't want to talk to people. But it seems like for you, it just seems really light to just, oh, I can just text this person this thing or call this person real quick, and it's just like, boom, done. Like I can do it. Why don't I just do it? You know what I mean? And, you know, for some people it's different. Like I'm not always like, you know, itching to talk to people. So it's like, you know, a little bit heavier for me to sometimes to pick up the phone and start dialing. But, you know, it's just something you got to just, you know, drill in and, you know, get yourself in that mentality. And I did want to ask you if you felt like you were in a similar lone wolf mentality when you were doing your properties during like the pit of despair, pretty much. Like when you were alone on all those places. I know you'd hired some help to help you with the prop, but like as far as the money goes, you were on the hook for all of that yourself. And
yeah.
Like, do you think you could have benefited if you had more of a group around you at that time? Like during that?
Yeah. So two thoughts come to mind. Number one, it was one of those things that I felt like I put myself in that position. So now I had to get myself out. So that was kind of like my first thought of, you know, burning that lesson into my brain and learning that lesson. But number two, I could have saved myself so much trouble if I just pick up the phone and just made 10 calls and just tried to raise a little bit more money or just talk to a couple of people and say, hey, like, I'm really hurting right here. You know, I'll put a lien on this property on my vehicle, or like just figuring out a way. So while I felt like I kind of ran out of options at the point and I kind of just had to get myself out of it, I do think that the better thing would have done is to continue to have those conversations and to know like that I'm going to get myself out of this, and maybe I can talk to one more person and they'll be able to help fund this. And then, you know, afterwards we do another deal or this or that. And or maybe I help them in return. As a landscaper, I work with my dad. We're all about it's hard because my dad doesn't hire out. So it's just me and my dad. And so it's kind of like we're that lone wolf. Whereas I would rather run it like a business and hire people. And it was interesting because there's one day I saw a company car drive by and I know the family, and I knew for a fact that the owner wasn't driving that vehicle. It's one of those things where it's like, I know they're not driving that vehicle. Whereas you look at me and my dad and our vehicles, there's a 50% chance that one of us is driving that. And so for me, I definitely think that, you know, the more the merrier. And if you get people to help you, whether it's raising money, whether it's swinging a hammer, you know, it's also one of those things that I feel like people like to know that they're helping you or that they can.
For sure. There's a big benefit. Like feel it. Like I feel like it was on a Joe Rogan episode or something. He was like talking about to some brain scientist or something, but he was
mushroom
like,
guy or something.
some mushroom guy or something. And like, but it was one of the like dopamine release, like some part of your brain that like trumps all is the feeling of helping others.
Yeah.
And it's like that feeling of giving without the expectation and like being of service and being of value in the community is like most people's like greatest joy, greatest accomplishment, greatest like anything that you can do for yourself. Like you have that quick like, oh yeah, nice. But then like when you see someone start to kill it and you know that you were a part of that, it's like, man, that's way better.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also stands in the same thing of like just something as little as a compliment. Like reach out and text someone, say, hey, like think about you're crushing it, or call someone and be like, hey, I've reached out to Jake. Hey, Jake, dude, you just got your 7th door. Awesome. Yeah. I hate you. I love you. Good job.
Yeah.
That's funny. I kind of wanted to swing it back just a little bit towards the meetup here, and something that I thought of that I wasn't quite sure was raising capital that Matt was talking about in his book. I haven't read his book yet. It's definitely on my list as well. So I was curious, does he work with only accredited investors for raising his capital, or do you know? I'm guessing you know more than we do on that, but
yeah. So I think it's a case by case thing. I know a couple of his previous deals, they had to be accredited, and I'm glad you mentioned that word because I couldn't think of it earlier. I think he does have unaccredited for other deals. He's got a lot going on. I mean, the guy, he's crushing it. It's really cool to watch.
There's just so many financial regulations about raising money from people who don't have a lot of money, thanks to all like the Ponzi schemes and stuff like that. You can't just take money from everybody. Depends on like what type of funds you have. Your part, like I know Matt said he had like a limited partnership or something like that. Was able to raise money. So I'm curious to see like what those options are, because like now the crowdsourcing is even a thing as well.
So there's different types of like when you're putting the deal together, it's like a 506B or a 506C. Yeah. Like those will make the difference of who can give money. Like there's some rules that are like you have to know that person. You have to prove that you met that person like twice. Like that's like an actual stipulation in one of the rules, and it's like that's crazy. Mm-hmm. But like it makes sense, but it's weird. Like I don't know anything about that stuff, so I'm excited to learn about it, whether I'm going to raise private money or not. Like I don't, personally that's not in my goals that I have coming up, but maybe one day I'll be in a spot that it will, and I'll know something about it. Like I wanted to ask if you thought it would be a good idea for like anyone that's listening that is starting a business, like a plumber, like our buddy Josh, or a carpenter who's looking for more work. Like I feel like this would be a great opportunity to get some work.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely is. And to know that, they're a friend of Jake or a friend of Caleb, it's kind of like you can depend on them, that they're going to do quality work, and they're not going to, I'm big on, it was funny that the other time someone talked about release of lien. Like when you do work, have a contractor do work on a property, at the end you sign a paperwork of like releasing a lien, basically saying like, oh, I paid you. And I never heard of that until like a couple months ago. And I thought to myself, holy cow, like I've only ever worked with people that I know that wouldn't come and sue me or try and, say, oh, you never paid me, blah, blah, blah. So it is huge. And I think especially right now, with all these stimmy checks and with all the Biden bucks coming in, people are doing tons of work on their home. And I just hear a lot of people.
It's impossible to find a contractor.
Well, that's a limited mindset.
Right. No.
It definitely is difficult. People are like, they spend a year in their house. They talk about how everyone's like ripping up their kitchen and doing everything. Yeah. And so people have they had a ton of money saved up from last year. They got sick of their house and now they're pumping money back in, or they're selling their house. And yeah, contractors are slammed. So I definitely think, contractors that come to this meetup that are young, like one of the my favorite things is like a lot of the contractors that I've befriended like are young as well. And I talked about like being able to grow old together. Like it's kind of funny because then, now they're in my network, we're going to be doing tons of work together. It's also helpful as you get into these bigger rehabs that your contractors have continuity and they know each other and they know what to expect from each other and communicate, have each other's numbers. So yeah, if you're a contractor, these people that are coming are going to love you. You're going to be your favorite guy.
Seriously.
Mindy Jensen talked about on the Money podcast. She's like, if you're a contractor and you want to set yourself apart, just pick up your phone. Like she said, that's like the biggest thing. And if you, want to build your business that way, I think that's like the biggest thing. So yeah, no, do it.
Yeah, no, that's all. So when we talked to you last time, you had I think you had just gotten the triplex or quadplex under contract. You had the one row home, the single family rented, and you were starting the rehab on the other single family.
Yeah. So I think last time we talked was like March, so a couple months ago. I was doing some major rehab for the 3-unit in Percy, tearing down walls and rerunning stuff. When I thought we were about a month away with the row home in Sellersville, it actually turned out to be like 2 months. And it is funny because like I got myself into the same predicament where I said I wasn't going to do this, but I did it anyway, where I got like it rented before I completed the rehab. And it's just one of those things it sets a fire under me. I don't know what it is. And it gets me motivated to get it done.
I'm sure with like how hot the market is for rentals, they don't really like, they're just probably happy they got a place right now with how things are.
Yeah. And the other thing was, aside from motivating me, one of the other factors is if I work super hard and just get this done, number one, I'll have more time on my hand. Number two, I also thought about, okay, if I get this done in 2 weeks less time, then that's another $1,000. And even if I spend another, $500 or $700, I'm making a little bit more money. So that was kind of the rationale. But yeah, we basically, last time I was on, we had just done drywall. Then we were doing painting. It was just so funny. I just felt like there was so much like final touches of like trim and painting and redoing this and redoing that, where it just took forever.
Did it feel like you were done? But like when you were like quote unquote done?
No, because there was still stuff. I came back. It was like, oh, my dishwasher's leaking. And huge lesson to anyone who's going to do a rental in the future, just buy all new appliances. I went and just got one off of Facebook Marketplace. And it's funny because I talked to a buddy and he's like, oh yeah, we never do that. Like, because he does high-end kitchens and stuff, but he knows a dishwasher, like the seal.
If it sits, it's bad.
Yeah.
For the dishwasher.
Yeah. And there's like the tub seal, which is around the edge. And then there's like the door seal down at the bottom. And I ended up just replacing both of them. And my wife is like, just buy new ones next time. And I was like, well, a new one's what, $400 maybe? Yeah. And I bought this for $50. I paid a contractor 2 hours. So it's like, okay, so what if I'm at like $200 and I spent another $100 on parts? I'm still like $200 ahead. So that's like kind of like the rationale.
I'm with you 100%. I'm big
hard
on not just buying all new appliances.
I've never bought a new appliance before.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, what I'm going to do next time, before I put it in, I'm just going to replace all the gaskets. Like it was probably like $20 worth of parts and more headache than anything. What was really funny is the night before they were moving in was just crazy. And I wanted to tell you this story. So it was like a Friday and they're moving in the next day in the afternoon. So I worked till like, I don't know, 7:00. I came home, kissed the kids goodnight, and then I took a nap, quote unquote, on the couch. And my wife went and we kind of like tag team. She went over to the apartment and did some painting for me.
That's awesome.
While I slept. And so she painted till like 1 a.m, killing it.
That's a good wife.
I love her.
Should marry her.
I know, right? Woke me up off the couch. And it was one of those things, if I slept in my bed, like, it's one of those things I just wouldn't wake up. And I slept on the couch, got up at like 1 or 1:30. Here, my brother-in-law had been there since 5 painting, 5 in the afternoon or so. And I get there and he's like, yeah, he said, I got a little bit left in the tank. And so it gets to like 2:00 in the morning, 2:30, and we're still painting. We're getting there. You know, we're getting it done. And then it was like 3:00, and I was like, "Are you sure you're good?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got a little bit left." And so he left at like 4:30 in the morning.
What a beast!
I mean, he's just a beast. I love him. You know, that's what brother-in-laws are for. And then I kept painting and finishing touches on stuff till about like 2:30 in the afternoon. Met the tenants, gave them the keys. You know, one of the things that's really cool.
And then they just like brushed up against the paint.
Yeah.
Paint
No,
on.
we painted most of the ceilings and the wall. Yeah, I know. It's kind of like,
Don't touch anything.
Welcome to your new house. Don't
So-
touch anything.
so I'm a big fan of It's a Wonderful Life, the movie. And there's a scene in it where they give like bread and wine, and it's like, you know, bread that you never go hungry, and wine that you will always have like a cheery, you know, heart or whatever. So I did kind of something like that. So it was neat just to kind of like hand the keys off, you know, give them, you know, a welcome packages and stuff. And then,
Did you do that with both of your places? Give them a welcome gift?
yeah, I did it for both. Just for me, it's a little bit different because they're single family homes, and
Sure.
I feel like
There's a different sense of ownership.
it's like,
Sure.
it's not like, you know, this tenant has people living above them.
Right.
I give a little bit more ownership where my other tenant has to weed whack his property. There's hardly any grass. He just weed whacks a little bit. And yeah, it definitely gives them like, this is your house. Like this is a house. I know you're renting, but like no one knows, like when people come over, it's your house. Like
Right.
it has a different feel to it. So yeah, I do definitely like, especially with them, it builds some camaraderie. It kind of says like, hey, like, I'm not a slumlord, you know,
Yeah.
like I'm not a guy that just wants to get your money every month. And it really just shows them that you're different. And I feel like they sense that.
So what exactly do you give them? Like actual bread and wine?
Yeah, I did that. I actually, like, my wife printed it out in like pretty font, and we put it in a cheap $2
Basket?
no, like a frame. We framed
Oh.
this thing. Yeah, we did give him like a small basket of stuff, and
Some chocolate turtles in there too.
yeah, where are the chocolate turtles?
How much you like in all do you think you spend on their gift?
Yeah, for this one, I think we also included some local gift cards to like $5 here
I
and
got a
there.
rent from you, dude.
Yeah, so I mean, I think max it's like 25 or $30 that I'm spending, but
Okay.
that's it's interesting because I feel like they talk about this. There's a book called Giftology, and they say like even like a $5 gift card to your mailman like is huge. Like a $5 gift doesn't seem like a lot to me, but like when someone comes and delivers,
Yeah,
you know,
someone,
lumber or
you
whatever.
thought about them. You're like the one person that thought about them.
Yeah.
You stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, and $5 when you hand it to them, like for me, a $5 like it's like whatever, $5. But when I give $5 to someone and they didn't expect it, it's
Yep.
all the more, and they remember you.
Yep.
And a lot of times they'll turn it down and be like, "No, you're gonna take this. Go buy yourself coffee. Like, you know, thanks so much." And it was funny when they did the drywall for my apartment. A lot of Hispanic guys barely spoke English, and I was always like, "Cafe, like, do you want a coffee?" I came back, spent like $8 on coffee, and I was their hero. Like, they loved it. And it was really cool because I had an opportunity to kind of show them and talk to them about like what I'm trying to do. And I actually like Google translated it and like hit play. And I basically told them like, hey, like this is for my daughter. Like, and so it's kind of like gave them like this idea of like, wow, like this isn't just some guy who's trying to make money and he's paying us cheap, you know,
Yeah.
or my boss is paying, you know, cheap labor or whatever.
Steve.
But what's that?
Steve.
Yeah, my boss,
Steve.
Steve. Yeah, right.
Yeah, let's talk about Steve for a second. I think this is hilarious.
So for me, when I do like a major rehab and I have to like answer to someone or like someone's complaining or whatever, and there's someone that has to get the blame. I told one of my contractors when I was gone, I was like, if anyone asks, it's Steve. Like you have to talk to Steve. Here's Steve's number. Call Steve.
And Steve's not real. Like, Steve is not a person.
Yeah, Steve is fake, but it's a little bit of a scapegoat of like, oh, let me talk to Steve.
He's real to us, you know. He's real to us.
And it helps me to kind of like, and it's not like I'm joking about it, but it's also like boroughs just are like, it's all politics. It's all like, oh, you didn't fill out this permit, you know, you didn't give us $100, like whatever. Like I'll pay the $100, like if I need to. But it's also helpful to kind of like these people that come and start asking questions. It's like at least gives you like a little, like it buys you some time. Like obviously, like I'm gonna tell the truth. I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna do what's right.
Yeah.
But like in the time, it's like it's always fun to be like, oh, if anyone comes by and like is mad, you know, just blame Steve. Yeah.
No, I think that's so funny.
Well, it's like the idea of renting to somebody and then you being the property manager, anytime there's an issue, be like, I got to contact the owner.
Yep.
And you leave and you just like call yourself, you know what I mean? And just like, oh, the owner said this. And then like, you're never on the hook.
For tenants, I've been, I feel like pretty vocal on like being against that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like,
it's not like, I think
for the borough's sake, I think it's great because they're just a pain and, you know, whatever. Yeah. But like, for your tenants, have we talked about this on a podcast? Like,
I don't think so.
Okay, so a lot of people that are new or just buying a duplex or something like that come to the conundrum of like, should I tell my tenants that I own the place? Mm-hmm. And like, I see that question all the time on the forums and stuff like that, and I like have the same response every time. And it's like, if your goal is to be a slumlord and to not take care of things and to, you know, just be a bad landlord.
Just get away with as much as you can.
Then that's the route that you should go. Don't tell them. If you want to be a good landlord and like build a relationship with your tenants and like having that relationship.
Well, it's like just a human connection with them that you can be like, yo, this is my situation that I'm in right now. I'm grinding to build something bigger, and like, yeah, sure, I can help you with your problems. Like, and then like they're not like taking advantage of that. Like, no, it's not like
I've seen it. Like,
I think it's the opposite, honestly.
Yeah, I think the only people that it hurts is if you're trying to be an absentee landlord. Yeah, like that's the only time that it's bad to tell them, because it's like I want them if there's any issue, like I want to be the first one that knows. I want to know right away. Mm-hmm. Like, we're friends. Like, they see me working all the time. And they're like, dude, that's awesome. Like, I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to spend my nights.
That's why I'm renting.
That's why I'm renting. Like, and it's not for everybody. Like, that's not the thing. So people can see that and respect it. And like, I feel like the respect level that I've had with my tenants has been because of that, because of my transparency and them seeing the work. Like, it's a 1-to-1. So I just wanted to quick interject with that, because I think that's really important. Like, tell them that you're the landlord. Yeah.
For me, what I'm trying to do, and what I think is kind of a bit of a happy median, where they need to know I'm not the only one making the decision. And even if I am the only owner, I still have a wife, and I could basically say, hey, I have to talk to my partner. So it gives the impression, number one, that there's more than one person, which there is. Yeah. But number two, it also helps you basically say, hey, I can't answer this right now. I have to talk. Like, it's like me asking you, hey, like, are you free Friday night? And you say, I have to go talk to my wife or my fiance. And it's like, obviously, like, there's going to be, you know, you go to a business. It's like, hey, like, I want to talk to a manager, and there's multiple managers. Like, whatever, like, I think that's the healthiest way for me. I try and be as transparent. You know, I tell a lot of them, like, this is for my daughter, and it gives them this higher purpose. Like, I'm not just screwing them over for money or whatever. Like, you know,
it's only for the one daughter, though.
No.
I was gonna say, you do have 4 kids, so.
Well, I know I have 4, and it's funny because, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Caleb, because the one time the first deal I posted, and I kind of said, hey, like, this is what I'm doing. I'm buying a property for all my kids. At the time, I had 3, and one lady was like, careful, you have 3 kids. And it was almost like, she was a friend of mine, and I love that she made that comment, but I was like, yes, I have 3, and yes, I'm going to buy 3. Like, I did it for one, I'm going to do it for all. And
so before you had 3, she said
before I
you
had
have-
3 properties,
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
careful, you have 3 kids. Kind of like, almost like, not doubting me, but kind of like, are you really going to buy a property for every single kid?
Yeah,
And I'm
right,
like,
right.
yes, I'm literally going to buy a property. And what's really funny is like,
Does the triplex count as 1 or 3?
I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that, but that's interesting because to me, that's more of like, it's going to benefit the whole family.
Yeah.
I kind of, in my mind, I want to buy a single family for each kid.
Mm-hmm.
And the triplex is just going to kind of benefit everyone. And then, I don't know what I'm never going to sell it. That's number one. I'm going to hold that
It's a
forever.
vacation fun house.
Yeah. It's also one of those things with the single family, like each kid can kind of like either live there with friends or they can rent out themselves. Whereas with the quad, it's kind of like, yeah, they can live in one unit, but it's just more of like, it's more of a headache if they were going to have that by themselves, and they can, I just haven't really thought about it too much. But yeah, I want to get back to the deal real quick. It's really funny. I just wanted to mention this. That house that we were just talking about, it's on Green Street in Sellersville, is 2 doors down from my other daughter. And I mentioned this in the last podcast of like the visualization. And what was really cool is after we got everything done, we took pictures in front again, kind of fulfilled that picture. But we also got a picture of my one daughter in front of her unit and the other daughter in front of the other unit. And it's like, sister street.
Yeah.
And I'm obviously gonna try and buy some more in that area. Hopefully in that same row, just kind of like buy up the whole row. But yeah, I mean, I love it. It's just so much fun.
Yeah.
I did want to get into the numbers really quick.
Yeah.
Cause last time we talked, I was conservative a little bit with the numbers cause it was March. And then ever since then, and especially, I mean, anyone that's paying attention to this market, it's just crazy. So number one, I felt like, I was being conservative with the ARV, and I am very interested to see what the ARV comes back at, the appraisal.
How long do you have to wait to get that? 6 months of them renting?
No, so with Harleysville, they'll lend after a year. They can't pull an appraisal or can't schedule an appraisal to exactly a year, which would be like August 22nd or 23rd.
It's coming up.
Yeah, it is coming up.
Nice.
So I think, so it's a 4.2.5, and it's a row home. It's an end unit. I've been seeing like 275 to 300.
And this one you got for 120?
Yeah.
And
115.
So 115, what'd you put in for the rehab all in?
All in, it was probably 40.
Okay. And that's not
Give or
counting
take.
your labor, probably.
Yeah, I did spend 5 months of my life there.
Right.
But it was totally worth it.
We're both on the same track. Like, we don't track that as well. Like, if we did, the numbers would be a little different. But at the same time, like, what's the alternative? Watching Netflix? Like,
Exactly.
you spent the time away from work on this place where you could have done nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I count it as a win. So 115, around 40 grand. So you're all in 155.
Yep.
You're hoping that the ARV is going to come in around 270?
I thought 275 would be conservative even now, and I've seen 4-bed, 2-bath row homes being sold for like closer to like 300.
Dude.
And so I was looking at the numbers and I was like, if this comes a little bit higher than 300, Harleysville, they'll do 80%. And it was going to be like, after everything and paying closing costs, it was going to be like close to like 100,000.
That's nuts.
And so I was just like, pumped.
So let's
I
do
was
it at
pumped.
like 250. Like, be like worst case scenario.
Yeah, and we did that last time.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario was like 50,000.
Which is still incredible.
Yeah.
Like, worst
Yeah.
case scenario, you made 50 grand.
Yeah.
On 5 months of your life. Like, you can like literally
Yeah, it's 10 grand a month.
Yeah, 10
Just
grand a month. And
on top of working.
And yeah, and so basically I like looked at it and I was like, this is kind of like the cool thing about it. So I was like, okay, well, college and housing paid for. I was like, check. Cash flow to buy food and clothes for that daughter. I was like, check. And then I was thinking, wow, like 50,000 to 100,000 for me to kind of like either roll into the next deal, or even better yet, like we talked about last time, the rich, they make money on their money. You know, I was like doing some rough calculations earlier today. I was like, if I lent this out to someone who is trying to do a rehab or whatever, and even lent it out at like 10%. I was like, wow, that's like $10,000. That's like over $900 a month in cash flow, you know?
So this is just crazy to me. So you're thinking that you'll keep doing the same hard money deals without your money, and use your money to make more money elsewhere, being the bank kind of.
Yeah. So with this deal, I'm borrowing money from someone for 12%, and then my goal is to either lend this money back out at 12% or even higher. In some cases, I can lend it even at a higher percentage. But yeah, it's one of those things that I kept thinking like, okay, this is my money, quote unquote, and I can like go buy a note, or I can invest it somewhere else and do something maybe not super risky, but a little bit more risky. Whereas if I have a private lender and I can just go to them and get money for 10% or 12%, whatever, I'll stick with that just basically kind of like continue to do what I've been doing and not really have to have my own money into the deal, which that's what's crazy is like, I wanted to stress, like, even if you're not looking to raise private capital, like someone the other day, it was just so funny. We're messaging back and forth and they're like, oh, I don't have the 20 to 25% to buy a deal. And I'm like, if I made that same excuse, like I'd have maybe one deal, like,
right.
And it's just very important for us to remember, like, if a deal's worth lending on, like, you can find money for it, you know, and whether it's me or someone else or someone, you know, that is willing to lend on it, you know, you can, you know, make money off that deal.
No, I think that's that's super relevant, but it's crazy. Like at the same time, like thinking about it's like kind of blowing my mind a little bit. Like, it's just like,
once you have enough money, your money can make money passively. You know, you don't
right.
have to
Like
keep
that's
grinding.
like actual passive income. It's like, sure, you can do.
I think that's definitely market dependent to be able to get these super high interest rates of like, if the market is in a downturn, I think it could probably be a little bit harder to.
I think it would be easier.
You think so? Because like
because
the
interest
deals
rates normally go up.
Say if like the deals are bad, like the houses are constantly getting cheaper. Like if it's a race to the bottom, then buying a house would be a bad thing because chances are it would be worth less by the time you'd sell it.
I'd say it's the chances of you buying a house right now is the worst chances you have.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
I think
That's
it's the
why
adverse.
That's why it's so it's like a race to the top right now for prices. So it's like everybody buying them is, you know, there's like a lot more competition to get into them. So that's but I'm not super sure on the economics of lending and note investing. So that was just a thought I had. But what are you getting for cash flow on that?
Yeah,
so no, that's a good question. No, I appreciate you. So, and that's what's really funny about like basically buying this property last year and then basically almost like taking advantage of COVID. Like last year I took advantage and bought properties, and now they talk about a rising tide raises
all ships.
Raises all ships. Thank you. And basically, let me put it this way. My first single family on Green Street, I was renting for $1,750. And I was like, oh man, like I could probably rent this one for $1,850. You know, it's a little bit bigger. And then as the market got hotter and like I was spending more time on the project and also like putting more money into it, I was like, well, what if I rented it for $19? I was like, that's crazy. And then like the market just kept like burning up. And I was like, what if I rented it for $19.50? And it just kept going. And I'm thinking, I'm going to rent this for over $2,000. And it was funny because I posted like a kind of like a preview on Facebook, and one of my buddies, Don, commented 2,000 ? And I was like, he's right. Like I have to list this for as high as I can and just hope that, you know, someone's going to be able to afford that. And also it was funny because when Don said that, people were like laughing, the laugh symbol. And I'm thinking, this is the like this house could rent for over 2,000. So I ended up, they had a pet. So I basically rented it for like $2,025.
Dude, nice.
And then my mortgage will probably be like $1,300. Mm-hmm. And then after taxes and insurance, taxes have gone up since I bought it. It'll probably cash flow like $500.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so that's like paying everything.
You paid no money. You might make $100,000, between $50,000 and $100,000, and it's gonna cash flow $500 a month while gaining equity, while paying off the mortgage every month.
Yep.
That's freaking
you're,
sick.
You're ripping out over the next couple of weeks, right? That's the cash out's going to happen over the next couple of weeks, you think?
So the appraisal, so with Harleysville, they can't schedule the appraisal till August 22nd.
Okay,
And then
so a
it's
month,
like
yeah.
then it's like a month of underwriting and stuff. So we're talking like maybe September. But yeah, so 500 in cash flow a month, and then, it's whatever I can make off of that 100, whether I lend that and if I can put that into another deal, like some of the numbers I ran on the calculators on Bigger Pockets, like I've been able to get like 25% off of the deals, putting some of my money into it, which also basically made sense of like, if I'm paying 12% or 15% on this money, it's still like, in theory making 10%. But if I lent this money out at even a 10%, making 10 grand and, another $900 to basically pay for groceries and, living expenses for my family, it was just like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Do you know how much, like, specifically you've spent over this year paying the hard money?
So with that particular deal, it's about $1,500 a month. So even if I had to carry that
on top of the mortgage, or that's like your mortgage?
That's my
payment?
mortgage right now on that property
Okay.
on Green Street. And so basically, if I have to carry that for a little bit longer, it's just like a little bit more than my mortgage would be.
It's only like $200 a month.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not huge, and that's why it was beneficial. Also, like I said, to kind of rent it before it was ready. It was kind of like, I'm paying a mortgage, interest on this property right now, and I kind of need to satisfy that and basically be able to kind of cover that.
Well, because the reason I'm asking is the idea I had was using that cash out refi money to get and pay for more hard money. Because if you can float, say, if you get the hard money to pay for, 4 more deals, and then instead of scraping your monthly income to make the payments on those hard money payments each month, you can use the $100,000 to pay for that. Because if you do, say, 14 months, you're paying that hard money for this house, $1,500, that's $21,000.
Yeah.
So you spent $21,000 to hold that loan temporarily before you got more money back out of it. So technically, you could do that like 4 more times.
Yeah. And the other thing,
I honestly like that a lot.
yeah.
That's a good thought, because instead of being like crap
Yeah.
every time, like
yeah.
you've got that.
Yeah, and we talked about it last time with the reserves, and probably what's going to end up happening is I'll probably lend. What I'm thinking is I'll probably lend about $50,000 privately, get some money coming into me, and then put $50,000 into the 4-unit. What was really funny, I don't know if I talked about this last time. So there's a garage unit there. It needs to be totally rehabbed, but I have like a budget of like $50,000, which is a lot to me, but it's gonna like make this into like a 2-bedroom.
Yeah, we both walked through it.
Yeah.
It's a garage.
It's
and
gonna
you're gonna
be-
turn it into a beautiful house.
Yeah, it's gonna be really. I mean, it's gonna be like almost like a high end, like not luxury, but it's gonna be a really nice apartment. So basically, what I can do is take 50, lend it out to someone else, and then take the other 50 and put it towards this. And originally, I was like, oh, I had that limited mindset of like, I don't have money to put into this, and now this other deal is going to fund that. And the other thing was, I was like, well, I could rent that garage out for, a couple $100 and not have to spend that 50. But the key was I finally did the math. I finally like looked under the bed and kind of like the whole boogeyman thing. I kind of actually ran the numbers, and I was thinking, well, if I fix this up and I rent this 2-bedroom luxury apartment with the garage, I'm thinking, $1,700 a month. And then it basically was like 3 years I would pay that $50,000 back.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that makes 100%.
Yeah, 33% cash on cash
Yeah.
on that $50,000. Like you can't find that. Like
Yeah.
And you don't have to move for that.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
because it's the same thing. Like with the house that I just bought, it's like it's a 4-1. It's technically a 2-1, but there's 2 more bedrooms upstairs and a spot for a bathroom. It's like I could like with practically no money turn it into a 4-1.
It's like, it seems like in this area, a house hack duplex for 15% down, you're going to get roughly 30-ish% cash on cash.
Okay.
That's what we're seeing.
But
That's nice.
I know.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But
I love that.
if it was like, okay, do I pull the permits, run all the plumbing, put 5 to 10 grand into this bathroom, what's that going to bring me back by listing it as a 4.2?
Yeah.
And it's like the first time on the podcast when I was breaking the numbers down, it was like, okay, without doing it, probably like without doing anything, I can rent it for, $1,500. By finishing the upstairs and putting the bathroom, it'd probably be around $2,000. Then it was like, well, is it really? Because there's no comps, there's no apartment 4.2s. So it was hard to find a comp.
Yeah.
And then I was like, if I just finish those 2 rooms up there and list it as a 3.1 for $1,600, it solves all my problems.
Yeah.
And it like I broke the numbers down like in all the different situations, and like if I could get $2,000 a month, that would make the most sense. But it's like I don't know how.
It's a lot for an apartment.
It's a ton for an apartment, and the kitchen's small.
Yeah.
Like there's some things about it that.
Like I can see 2,000 for your place,
right,
all day for that,
right?
Ooh.
It's like, and it's the same.
It depends.
Close to the square footage.
It depends on the market. I feel like people are still they can't buy a house right now. They have plenty of money,
right?
Quote unquote.
It's like right now, if I did it, I could get a tenant in for $2,000 right now.
Okay.
Next year, when the lease is up,
yeah,
probably not. Like and that's all speculation. But at the same time, it's like why take on that extra project? Why put that extra money there if I'm speculating?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm sitting at with that now. I think I'm just not going to put the bathroom there, finish the 3rd floor, and call it a day.
I did want to go back and say, like, ask you, would you do that again? Like, would you get all that hard money out? Would you, like, just put the pedal to the floor and just, like...
That's what he's saying. That's his plan.
Over leverage yourself so hard, would you do it again?
The first deal?
Well,
or this newest one?
It seems like every single time it was like that, honestly.
I would do everything again. Yeah. I would definitely. So if I could if I could go back and have the knowledge I have now, I would definitely do things differently. I would raise more money, or I would be more conservative. I would go into it with more reserves, like that. That's always been the biggest thing. It's like,
well, you proved it. You don't even need any of that stuff. So
yeah,
just go in with no
money.
But
it's definitely much more like, I talked about it the other day with my wife, where it's like, it's funny because there's right now with those 2 properties, there's a lot of money coming in and there's a lot of money coming out. So it's like this revolving door of like trying to keep track of money, try and make sure. And the biggest thing is, and I wanted to stress this, and Matt talks about it in his book. Number one, I didn't mention this earlier. What's really great about this meetup that we're planning, the one I did last year, the guy that's funding my 2 deals was at that meetup. And so number one, like, because I did that meetup, because I was there, because I invited him, he's funding these deals for me, which is huge. But I also put myself into position to be that guy that he's going to lend, because I had that meetup and I positioned myself to do that. Matt also talks about it in his book. And I also want to stress his book is like 1/3 raising private capital. Like he as part of that, you'll learn in that book, he talks about doing LLCs and joint ventures. So there's a lot of that. And then there's also like unwinding a deal, which is basically what a lot of us are doing, refining or this and that. So even if you're not looking to raise private capital, that book has a lot of really good basics. It's a very fundamental book. But basically one of the things that he talks about is like, you need to be the type of person that like when you do something when you say you're going to do something, you have to do it. And while I'm like paying all these loans, it's like I committed to this person to pay this loan. And it's like, you kind of feel the weight of that. And it's, just being a grown person, like you have bills to pay and you have this, like, so while it is stressful, it's also like, this is kind of like just the way it is. And like, I thought of it the other day. It's so interesting. Like when you really think about real estate investing, like a lot of people I talk to are like, oh, I don't have money. I don't have time. I don't have this. It's like, I've never had money. I've made time. Like I tried to like formulate in my head of like the people that are investing in real estate and trying to better themselves and to create wealth had the same problems that everyone else has. Like it's so funny when someone says, I don't have that money. You have to just change that mindset. And there's so many books, like Think and Grow Rich is the first one that comes to mind. Like, I just thought about it. I was like, basically rich people and poor people had the same problems. The rich people just have a different mentality of taking them on.
And there's I believe that 100%, but then there's the exceptions. There's a ton of real estate investors who had money to start.
Yeah. And there's people who like have exceptions for being able to make money. You know, we're not saying that like this is a level playing field.
Right.
You know, the world isn't fair, obviously. Right. But like if you are alive, you don't have any critical disabilities, you work a job and you are capable of making money, you know, you're capable of investing in real estate. It's not rocket science.
And like I just put it on Instagram today, like it was like someone shared it was like a tweet or something, but it was like, if we put the playing field to zero today and gave everybody 25 grand, most of the rich people would become rich people again.
Yeah.
And that, like,
maybe
I think Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street, he said that same thing. He's like, if I went broke today, in 5 years, I would be a millionaire. Because it's just that mentality.
Right.
Like,
and I think that's so true. Like, and then it said, like, with some exceptions, like, I'm sure there would be some people that's like, okay, now I'm going to change. Or it might even be the mindset of, like,
all the people born into money would be, you know, immediately broke. And, like, it wouldn't be, you know, a
like
replica.
Anyone who made themselves rich could make themselves rich again. Like it's that same mindset. If you carry that, you know, I don't know. I thought it was interesting and it pertained to what we were talking about.
Well, I feel like most people would have so much more money than they've ever had before, and they just immediately want to spend it all. You know,
that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Like you have an advantage because you already had those luxuries, and now you know whatever it is. But no, Seth, what's next?
Yeah. So, and that's what's interesting is. I've kind of, now that I got that one rehab done, I'm focusing on the 4-unit and trying to get that done by this winter. And yeah, I'm in the process of lining up another deal. One of the things is I kind of like want to, not quote unquote, like graduate into like a 5 to 10 unit. That's kind of like my next step of like, this is kind of like the big boys, like, you know, that's going to take a lot more, you know, maybe that's where I kind of save some of my capital to kind of like put that into a deal. And you know, would
you partner to do something like that? Would you raise private capital and do that? That's your plan?
Yeah. So there would probably be a couple different ways to go about it. Number one, there probably could be like an opportunity to do a joint venture or an LLC where I form an LLC and I give equity away in exchange for capital. Or I just kind of do the same thing I've been doing and just have 1 or 2 private lenders that lend on the deal and I pay them interest. It is hard right now, like with the deals that I've done, like the difficult part for me is like each single family home is for a kid. So like giving up equity is like, it almost feels like wrong.
You can't.
Yeah.
Right.
And
kind of tied yourself up there a little bit.
Yeah. Whereas the next step is like to get into a deal where it's interesting because I don't foresee myself selling the properties I have right now,
right? Just
because of the vision I have. But if I buy property and partner with someone, like I have to kind of, if I'm willing to give up equity, have to at least have the possibility of selling that property.
Yep.
You know, and that's a lot of the goal. Like if you build or if you construct or rehab a property and make it into a 5 to 10 unit, or you buy one and you do massive renovations, like some of the point is to sell at the top. And
well, the value is derived from the net income.
Yeah,
so it's
the
just
cap
so
rates and
much
everything.
Cleaner.
Yeah.
For like value adding versus like
Did you listen to that Bigger Pockets episode today?
No, I did not.
Literally all they talk about was value add commercial partnerships. Like it literally just came out today.
Nice.
I listened to it. You're saying like the same stuff.
Yeah, well, it's like we've talked about it a million times with like the small multifamily, you know, the 2, 3, and 4s. it's a residential market, so it's just completely different versus the 5 to 10. You meter the water in the apartments, and then all of a sudden you remove your water expense, and your net income is just now this much higher. The whole value of the property is now that much higher, and you can just immediately sell it for profit. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
He broke it down that on a 5 or 6% cap rate, every dollar, like one single dollar that you are able to save or earn a month is $200.
Yeah, I did listen to that.
Wow.
Crazy. Like in what the property's worth.
Yeah.
So like he said that he did one. It was like they came in and each unit was producing 30 grand a year or something and raised it to like 75. And like just the
That's
return
amazing.
on that was just, it was like a 99 unit building. It's like, dude, what?
I love that.
But yeah, I know. It definitely got my gears turning. Now talking to you, like, and I'm really excited for this event.
Yeah. And one of the things, so talking about the event, I wanted to kind of like at least give my like 2 cents as far as like, the whole point is for Matt to come kind of give his story. And we're both like huge superhero guys. And, it was funny because like Matt relates to Captain America. I've kind of really related to like Batman, and it's like I grew up watching all those movies and cartoons and stuff like that. And as I like really broke it down, it like really started to like really get kind of creepy, kind of like weird. Like, okay, like you look at Batman, like he's just a guy. And I kept like, that was like the main thing I related to him. Like, it's not that he has, superhuman abilities or he didn't have like, gamma rays or whatever. Like he's just a dude and he just utilizes his tools differently. So that's number one. Number two, what's really great about him is, and I wanted to like really stress this. Like a lot of people talk about like, wow, like you do a lot, or like you look at Brandon Turner, he does a ton. It's like, I hear so many people say everyone has 24 hours and Caleb, you, or actually I think it's Jake, you said it earlier, like talking about watching Netflix for, a couple hours at night. Like someone said, even if the national average is like 4 hours of TV. And it's like, even if you cut that back to just 2 hours, it's like, okay, you can still watch a show, just spend 2 hours working on your business, how much more that can help you. So like for me, I just told a story, I slept on the couch for 3 hours and went back and worked throughout the night. Like that's Batman. Like he does, like he has 24 hours, same as everyone else. Like he just uses it differently. And I think that as real estate investors, like we just have to use our time differently. And I'm reading 10X right now by Grant Cardone. And he talked about like, you give someone 30 minutes to make phone calls, they'll make 15 and I'm going to make 30 just because like he just has that gear that, to be able to crank it up.
Yeah. And it's successful people. It's like what changes in successful people, like Caleb and myself, we've both been there sleeping on the couch for a few hours and painting throughout the night. Like we've both been in that same exact situation that you're saying, and like it's that drive, it's that what's gonna make you successful. And like I was always kind of like, oh, it's something you're just intrinsically, like you're born with that motivation and that hustle. But I don't even think that's the case. I think it's something that anyone can do. Like anyone can,
and strengthened by the people you surround yourself as well. Like 100%. I think that is so important, because like if you're like, you are who you who you hang out with. So if you're surrounding yourself with a bunch of people who just want to watch 4 or 5 hours of Netflix every night, like that's it. That's most likely what you'll be doing as well. So
yeah, and that's why I love being friends with you guys, especially with Jake. I keep saying, he just got his 7th door, and it's like, wow, like he's motivating me to want to continue to grow my business and have a healthy competition. So then the last thing, kind of like what I relate with Batman is, he's obsessed. Like he's obsessed with black. He's obsessed with bats. He's obsessed like with justice and vindication. And it's really interesting it's funny that I'm reading Grant Cardone's book now. 'Cause like if I feel like I had a really bad taste in my mouth for him just because of his mannerisms, but like I feel like you could still take and glean from things from people that you don't like or whatever. I don't know. He just rubbed me the wrong way.
No, I totally agree. I think he's a douche. But like
but what he's doing is crazy.
And we were talking about that with Matt as well. Like you need people around you that think differently than you. You need inputs that are different than your
Yeah.
thought process, or else you'll never grow. Like if you're just stuck on the same wavelength and surround everyone that thinks exactly the same, you're not going to get better. Like you need people like Grant Cardone who have became super successful just by being a douchebag. Like, you need that. You need to be.
You imagine being sold something by that guy? Like,
no,
it would just be. He's just relentless. Like, you would eventually just like, fine, if I give you money, will you leave me alone?
Yeah.
So.
And that's what's so funny about him. Like, as you read his book, he started out as like this big sales guy. Like, he started in sales, and then he got his who he is. He built who he is by building a system.
Yeah, his brand and his image and all that.
To help, it's like Salesforce and like helping other companies build that. And then through that is where he got into like the Grant Cardone Capital, where like now he's like raising millions and billions, like just doing crazy stuff because he kind of had that funnel and basically said like, I'm the guy that's going to close the deal,
Yeah, he was like he's all about the pipelines. Like, I'll fill your pipeline. Like, it's just like, it just repeats himself like a million times. And then, that was.
If you say it enough, it's true.
It'll happen if you say it enough times. You envision it, and then boom. But I saw him on Undercover Billionaire, and he did not make his money back.
Oh, really?
No.
But yeah, I mean, it's so funny. Like, one of the things, like I said, that he talks about, and what I like really resonated with is like that obsession of like, okay, like I have to be obsessed, like providing for my family. I have to be obsessed getting more properties and getting them off market or raising private capital. Like, and he basically said like, no one is successful unless they're obsessed with what they're doing. Like, you guys have been obsessed with getting house hacks and build, like basically being able to do that like with ease, like that. And that's what's really cool. And I did want to take a moment. Like, I really commend you guys for really helping people out, like starting out with the house hack, giving the blueprint for that. Because I think that if I knew that 6 years ago when I bought our first house, like if I had bought a duplex, like, and just know like, okay, like I can rent the other half out and they can pay my mortgage, like, rather than like figure out a way to pay my mortgage. Like, what if I found a way that the mortgage is already paid? Like, I think that's really cool. It's really neat what you guys are doing, being able to help other people. I talked to my nephew, like he loves what you guys are doing because it's something that he sees himself doing, of buying a duplex or buying a triplex and basically living for free. And that, to take that number one living expense away and like not have to worry about that is just like, it's so cool. Like, I just love it.
Did your nephew listen to us?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Kenny.
Shout out to Kenny.
Yeah,
Kenny.
Kenny's going to be a young slumlord in the making.
When I came over to your place when you guys were doing all the work, I think he was there and like...
Yeah, he was helping me out.
He showed it to me on his phone that like he like listens to the podcast.
That's
I was
awesome.
like, dude, that's sweet.
One thing I did want to talk about, and it's so funny, Caleb, because last time, and even in this episode, like just talking about like, wow, like would you do that again? That seems extreme and this and that. Like David Green mentioned a quote, and I wrote it down because I was like, this is who I am. And he was like, one man's appetite is another man's indigestion. And it's definitely like one of those things that I definitely wouldn't recommend what I'm doing, but I feel like I'm trying to build my empire in like a 5-year period. And it's just like, I feel like I'm on cocaine sometimes, just like trying to get this done in a short amount of time.
No, and that's like going back to what we were saying earlier, like surrounding yourself with different people, like different deals mean different things to different people. Like I wouldn't have the stomach to do what you're doing, but you are crushing it. Like the numbers and the return and like how all these deals that are playing out are just grand slams. But I personally wouldn't do it.
Yeah. And
that's okay.
Yeah. And the same thing goes for me. Like I wanted to mention too, like I can't house hack right now. Like I can't, okay, I know.
No, but it's the same thing. Like I'm saying I can't do that. I can't stomach that. You're like, I couldn't uproot my family every year.
That's what's hard.
And
yeah.
move. Like
you could,
and I could.
Yeah.
Like we both could do it, but it's
would
not.
It be worth it though? That's like the value created would be worth the headache and stress that you put yourself through
For both of us.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be. It wouldn't.
Right.
Like I definitely foresee myself doing like a live and flip where I'm able to live there for a couple of years, build equity, and then sell it.
100%.
Whereas what you're doing, like I just in good conscience wouldn't move 4 kids into a duplex and live next to someone. I would just hate myself, and
Sure.
my wife would just be like shushing them the whole time.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I foresee myself in the future, when our kids go to college, moving into one of our apartments, and sure, like we could do that. That's perfectly fine.
And also a year goes by very fast.
Oh my word.
So
like
fast.
it literally seems like we just like
you just settled in,
and
Yeah.
we're packing up. Like we're getting all the
That's so
decorations
funny.
off the wall and like everything, like packing all our boxes and stuff last night, and it was like, holy
Yeah.
crap, this year, like we didn't spend that much time here.
When I
Yeah.
moved into the current duplex, I'm like, I got a year, I'm good. Like I can relax. Like that
That's
was just
so
so
funny.
much stress. I'm like thinking now, I'm like, holy shit, like that is right around the
Right.
corner. Like
Yeah.
my heart rate's like increasing every day. Like it's gonna happen again,
Yeah.
And that's such a good segue because 1 year doesn't seem like that much, and 2 years really. Like I started out 2 years ago, and so like we talk about a lot of these guys that are coming to the meetup and haven't invested or just getting started. Like I was there 2 years ago, and now
So was I.
Yeah, it's like so
2019.
much can happen in that 2 years, and
Yep.
just be like, don't be down on yourself that you don't have a deal or whatever. Like I just think that's so important to keep in mind. Like 2 years goes by very fast, and in the same time, like you can do a lot in 2 years if you really commit to it. That's there's plenty to get done in that time frame.
Yeah.
I did want to mention, just for the people that even a $50 ticket seems like a lot, message me on Instagram. I'm giving away a couple free tickets for people that really want to come, that money is an issue. Like I want to make sure if that's a problem, there's other people that are going to say, hey, I want to sponsor someone, I want to pay for them, or blah, blah, blah. Like there's margin for that to kind of bless some people and to help. Like I don't want that, because I think about 2 years ago, $50 is a lot.
Right.
We talk about not being able to buy books and not doing that, but it's all like, I don't want that to be a hang up. And also like, I want it to be an opportunity where, maybe you get a free ticket if you bring, a friend, or you bring 2 friends or whatever. So message me on Instagram.
We'll tag you. It's the
Tag me.
Atlas Holding Group.
Yeah.
In addition to that, if you don't have the money and you want to come. But if you do have the money and you see the value for someone else and you want to make a donor thing,
a
like
sponsor. Yeah.
I'm gonna do that for sure, just to pay for someone else, like so that there's more people. We want everyone to be able to come who wants to come.
Yeah,
like
it's like a pay it forward kind of thing. Yeah, that'd be huge.
Yeah.
No, if you'd be willing to do that,
sure.
and if there's other listeners, one of the things I thought about is like, hey, like I would love to introduce them too. Of like, hey, like this guy paid for you. Like you don't owe him anything, but if you could take him out for
I don't want
coffee.
to do that.
No, I know, but I mean,
That'd be weird. But it would be nice. Like I understand.
yeah,
the
if
concept,
there's someone else out there that
Yeah.
wanted to meet the person or whatever, it's just an opportunity to add value.
Sure.
So it's really funny. I wanted to talk about a couple of things. Like it's funny, my nephew, I finally went to his dad's house, my cousin, and we played the cash flow game. I don't know if have you guys played that?
Where'd you get it?
My cousin had it. So
it was like out of stock everywhere. I saw on eBay for like $90, and I'm like,
Really?
no shot.
my wife was gonna buy it for like a Father's Day gift, and I was hoping to buy one and give it away at the meetup too. But that game is so much fun, and it's like Monopoly, but like real life. I love it. It's definitely like it's fun because it really teaches you life lessons. Like I pulled like the job card of like a janitor. I literally lost my job 3 times on the board, and still like at the end I ended up buying a property, sold it to an investor, and like it took me forever because I lost all my money 3 times. But I eventually like got into the end round where you basically reach financial freedom and retire or whatever. It's so much fun. I highly recommend it. I mean, if you have Monopoly, it's still like it's still the same thing. But the other thing I want to talk about, like we're talking about like doing stuff that's uncomfortable, or doing things that like you don't feel like you're up for the task. Like I was talking to a couple different people, and a lot of podcasts I listen to, they talk about taking cold showers and this and that, and all the the health benefits. Like I finally did it, and I was like, whoa, like, okay, I did it once, I can do it again. And like I've been trying to end a shower full blast cold every single time. And it's funny because this morning I'm watching a video on Instagram, and Tony Robbins actually does like cold plunges, like cold bath, like full out, like 50-degree. He said, and I wrote it down, and he's like, it trains your body. When I say go, we go. And I thought that was so important as like investors and inspiring entrepreneurs. Like it trains your brain. Like when I say we're going to call this guy, we're going to call this guy. Mm-hmm. And Grant Cardone in his book talks about fear a lot. He's like, if you fear something, it's all the more reason you should do it. Like if you're afraid of calling someone, it's all the more reason why you have to get up and make that phone call. So I just thought it was really neat. Like just one of those things that I've been doing of like, wow, like I feel like more like gusto, like I almost felt like more like ability to like just kind of like face my fear of doing something. It's also interesting, like a month after I got this last unit rented, I get a call and they're like, hey, our sewer's backing up. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And it happened to that first deal where Corona hit a month later. And now this time around, it's almost like you feel like you're done. And all of a sudden, like you get this phone call or you get a text. And what's funny is they were flushing flushable wipes down. Apparently they thought it was like septic instead of sewer. And it was like getting caught on stuff. And it was one of those things that I just felt like, okay, as a real estate investor, any problems that come my way, I told my buddy this, I had to play hot potato. I must have to say, okay, there's a plumbing issue. Okay. And I'm going to pass it off to my plumber. Okay. There's an electrical issue. Okay. I pass it off. And like the faster you do that, it's almost like it takes the stress out of it. And I felt like it relieves you from feeling like you have to fix everything yourself. Yeah. And as you guys like grow your portfolio and you kind of have to deal with, you're already dealing with units and stuff like that, but it's also just helpful to know like, okay, like the sooner I make this someone else's problem, the better. I mean, it really just
I think there's a little bit of a mix to that, or at least for me personally, like I definitely see the value in treating it like the hot potato and getting it off to whoever as soon as possible. But I was just talking to my dad about this the other day, and it was like, no matter what happens at any of these rental properties, or buy even any house, like buying a new house, like literally anything, I can figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, and that's so true.
I think that's such a crazy, thing to think about. Like it's such and anyone can, like truly, anyone can figure out anything about anything. And like that, the ability to do that, it's like, do you want to? And like, sure, in this short term, right now, young, trying to save money, blah, 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 like really hustling, like it might make sense to do it. Later on, I know that later on, I'm not going to want to do everything. Yeah, exactly. I know that. But like,
if you want to scale,
if you can look at Caleb's face, he's
if you want to,
making
it's
the
important.
Squinty. I doubt that, Jake, because you're gonna want to do everything forever.
I think it's important because they talk about like as an entrepreneur, you're used to doing stuff by yourself, and that's how you get into entrepreneurship, and you have to learn how to fix things and stuff like that. But also, I think on the other end, as you scale, it's like if you
need to be able to let go.
Yeah,
you need to be able to who, not how.
Yep. And they talk about an E-Myth where I think they talk about where you get to the position where you are because you can do things by yourself, but then you scale by delegating. Yep. It's kind of like what I talked about earlier with my landscaping. Like I'd love to be able to send 2 crews out to 2 different jobs and not have to, that's the scalability, type factor.
Well, for me, it was just like the mindset of what happens when I'm in the middle of work, trying to finish a deliverable with a tight deadline, and I got a call that something needs a priority fix right now, and like I don't have someone already lined up to go. It's like, I'm screwed,
Yeah.
Like, something's gonna get let go. It's something like I'm gonna have to drop the ball on one of these things.
Right.
So
you need those people in place.
Absolutely.
For sure. So no, with that, like this has been an awesome episode. Seth, I really appreciate you coming out. Again, everyone, Slumlord code word, $10 off.
Yeah, and it was actually you can do capital or lowercase s. It doesn't matter.
Okay, never mind. Do either way.
Yeah.
And yes, we really look forward to it. We'll see you guys there.
Awesome.
Thanks again.
Can't wait.
Thanks for coming on again, Seth.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
All right, man. Peace.